welcome back to my channel. My name is Kristen. Welcome if this is your first time stopping by. So as we are wrapping up the end of this year, I have seen a lot of other people do this, but this is something that I want to do, a way to look back, right? What were my favorite books this year? What were my favorite reads? Sorry about that. So I have 23 books, my top 23 books of 2023. The majority of these were 5-star reads, and I only have one of them not sitting with me because it is with my best friend, but she's reading it, and that one comes in later in the video. So throughout this video, I'm gonna go from my least top to my highest top. So we're gonna start at 23 and work our way up to 1. And I'm so excited to share all of my favorite books that I read this year. So if you guys are excited for this, grab some tea, grab some coffee, whatever you want. Let's sit down and let's talk about some books. My number 23 of my top 23 is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Now I know this book was really big last year, and I got it really early on in the year and I just never picked it up, and I finally listened to the audiobook because I wanted to listen to her narrate this. Now, like a lot of other people who grew up around the same time that I did, I loved iCarly, and hearing all of the stuff that Jeanette went through with her mom, with just how she was treated and how everything kind of came about, it really hurt my heart to hear all of the issues that came around. But I can't rate this like on my higher of the 23 just because it is a nonfiction, and like it's not something that I really like will reflect on and think about in a dreamy sense. It's more of a serious kind of like I'll ponder what she went through kind of feeling, if that makes any sense. So this is a really incredible read. She did an amazing job. It kind of leaves me a little bit unsatisfied just because I don't know how she's doing now, because I've heard other things going on, but it was a really good read and I highly recommend. It was in my top 23. Okay, so my next book is a book that literally I've heard no one talk about, but it was one of my favorite reads, and this came out I believe in 2022. Let me just double check. It came out in 2022 but was published in 2023. This is One of Us is Dead by Geneva Rose, who wrote The Perfect Marriage. She also has come out with another book since then and a rom-com. So lots of stuff to unpack here, but I loved this. This is kind of like a whodunit, multiple POV, like lead up to the incident and then like kind of a flashback, if that makes any sense. So this is so good if you really like a quick thriller, suburban, really like overdone women sort of like vibe. This is a really good read. I read this in the summer and I think I read it in like a day. Like it was really quick. It's a like 350-ish pages, so I really do recommend this, and this was my number 22 of 23. My next book that made it to the top 23 is my one of two, I believe, YA reads, and it is Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. I also read Chloe Get a Life, Chloe Brown, I believe, this year via audiobook, and I loved that. But something about the way that this book was written, I just absolutely, like, I completely devoured it. I loved the story. I thought it was so cute. It's under 300 pages. There's mixed media. I loved everything about this book. I loved the POC representation. Everything about this book was adorable. So if you have been kind of on the fence of picking up a YA book but would like to kind of read a YA book, this is definitely one of my favorites that I've read this year, and this is my 21st. Now, number 20 is my other YA, and I absolutely loved this. The hype for this book was so real, and it is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. I loved this storyline. I loved Wes. I loved Liz. This is like the dream of every high school student, every high school girl, like just perfect scenario. Everything about this was so adorable, so cute. The references to all of the classic like love stories were amazing. I just loved everything about this, and I highly recommend this one. Even if you are an adult, this is such a cute and loving and comfortable and just you're gonna love everything about this. So highly recommend, and this is my number 20. So my number 19, I have read recently. This is a controversial read, and that is why I didn't really rate it as high on the scale, even though I really enjoyed it, and it is Credence by Penelope Douglas. This book is incredibly taboo, incredibly, not, I wouldn't say necessarily dark, but it has some very dark elements. It's a quick read, but there's a lot to take in, and you really kind of have to get past the mental taboo mindset if you want to enjoy it. The writing was really good though, and I really enjoyed the true like depth of the story and how like deep it went into this girl's our main girl, Tiernan's like background and her life, and just how she kind of approaches situations, and I really enjoyed it. I read this in November, and this is my 19th out of 23. Number 18 for me is As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. This is the third and final book in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. I loved this one, but all three of them are on this list, and as deep and dark as this one got, the first one is still my favorite, so that one will rate higher than this. And I really did enjoy how we really got into the psychological depth of our main character Pip in this book. It was really, really enjoyable. Again, another YA book, but it reads so well, and I think that even if you don't enjoy YA, the mystery, the thriller, the way to easily digest this story, and then they're coming out with a TV show about it, like, loved this. So this is my 18th out of 23. Absolutely love it and highly recommend. So speaking of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, number 17 is Good Girl Bad Blood, which is the second one in the series. This one really follows a completely different storyline, but I absolutely loved it. The first and the third book kind of wrap each other together, but the second book is kind of a not standalone, but it kind of has its own like plot points, if that makes any sense. But I really loved this, and I liked how, again, the mixed media in these books are so good, and I can't wait to read more by Holly Jackson. But this one is definitely in my top 23, and this is number 17. Number 16 is a book that I originally read via NetGalley, and then I read it I bought the physical copy, and it is Grayson's Vow by Mia Sheridan. Mia Sheridan became a favorite author of mine this year, as you guys know, and I've talked about a lot on here. This is a really well-written marriage of convenience story, and this was my first ever marriage of convenience story that I've ever read. I didn't really understand like the whole like how could this make sense sort of trope, but the way that this one is written, it really does kind of show how that works, and it made the trope enjoyable. Even though it's probably not my favorite trope, the writing of this really makes up for that. So that is why this ranked in my top 23, and I ranked this at number 16, I believe. And this will definitely be a favorite for Mia Sheridan, and I can't wait to read even more of her stuff in the future. Number 15, again, is controversial, but this is the only, I think this is the only one I have on the list that is by this author. And I feel like her reign, I should say, has kind of died down. She hasn't come out with really anything new this year. So I think that's kind of why she's been off the radar for some people. But my number 15 is November 9th. This one was so mind-blowing, and I love the twist. And the thing about Colleen Hoover books is that they are very easy to digest. So they tend to, you know, read easily for people who are just getting back into reading, which is amazing. And the twists that she adds to her stories are crazy and unpredictable, and this one is no different. So I loved November 9th, and this ranks as number 15th out of 23. Number 14 for me for my top 23 is Catherine Center's Hello Stranger. Now, a lot of people, like, they ranked this high, or they ranked this at least a 4-star, but like they didn't like it as much as The Bodyguard. But I haven't read The Bodyguard yet, so that kind of played into it. This is such a cute women's fiction. I wouldn't necessarily consider it a romance, and I think that's the reason a lot of people were hesitant on like labeling this higher, because I think it's technically considered a romance, but it really mostly focuses on the main character and her pathway in life, and the challenges that she's going through and how she's adjusting her life with them. So I just don't really classify it as much of a romance, even though there's a romantic element. But the writing and the love I got out of this book was so good, and I really loved it. And so I had to put this on my top 23. And this one is definitely one that made me want to read more from Catherine Center, and will be a new favorite author of mine once I read more of her books. I can just tell that she is like my style of book. So this is number 14. Number 13 is one of the books that I read earliest in the year, and I didn't have a physical copy of it until I found it used, and I'm so excited about it. And it is Alice Feeney's Rock, Paper, Scissors. This book I read, I think this was like my first book I read of the year, and this book messed up my brain so much. I loved the twists, I loved the turns, everything about this. I made so many people read this year. And this is just such a good thriller, and I like wasn't into thrillers until I read Alice Feeney's book, and now I'm hooked. I love thrillers, and this one definitely was one that will sit with me forever and will be an all-time favorite. But I had to put this in my top 23 of this year, and yes, this is one of my favorite thrillers of all time, but I did have to rank it number 13. Number 12 is a book that I will absolutely cherish, and I loved so much. I still think about this book all the time. Like just moments will pop into my head, and it just makes me want to read this again. But I have so many books I want to read, and I just don't. I've never been like a person who rereads books, but this is one that like I really loved. And this is V. Schwab's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I know this isn't a new book to anybody, but wow, like it is just so good, and the writing and like the fantastical element and like just everything about this, and like the depth and the darkness to it, and the heart-wrenching parts to it. It's just so good. I loved this book so much. I did read this on my Kindle, and then of course I had to pick up a physical copy, and I wanted the pretty blue one. So I did get this, and I love this book. This is one of my favorite reads of the year. Highly recommend. Number 11 is another thriller, and this is one of my most recent thrillers that I read, and it is The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. Now, I'm starting to understand the hype about Freida McFadden, so I get it. But my friend and I read this together as our November book pick, because we kind of did like a buddy read or like a little mini book club. And this is a book that both of us have had on our radar, and we really wanted to read it. So we picked up The Housemaid this month, or last month, and oh my gosh, the ending of this book is so sick, so twisted, disgusting on so many levels, but so good. And the writing of this, it just, oh, it's so good. This was a 5-star read for me. This was an amazing thriller, and this is one that I still am thinking about like daily. Like just the things that happened in this book, like I still think about them. So this is definitely an amazing book, and I would say if you haven't read it, you should. Okay, we are getting into our top 10, so I'm super excited. Okay, top 10. Number 10 is a author that nobody talks about. She's an independent author, and I read this book from her this year and fell in love, and it is Liz's Road Trip by Bernadette Marie. This book has so much heart and soul in it. It's about Liz who lost her grandmother, and through her grandmother's wishes to spread her ashes down to a home in Florida, she is learning all of these elements about her grandma that she never knew. So there's kind of this like mystery element to it. And then of course there's love, there's romance, there's warmth, and there's a cat. So if you love cats, you would love this. But this is such a good book, and I honestly, like, this was so beautiful. And if you want like a good, I would say this is more like a summary read, but if you want like a good romance that'll just like make you feel so much, this is definitely up there. So this is number 10, and one of my favorite books of the year. Number 9 will come as no surprise because I'm sure it's in a lot of people's top books of this year, and it is Fourth Wing. And yes, I finally read Fourth Wing, and yes, it is as good as everybody talks about. I do have the edition with the sprayed edges. This book is so good. I loved it. I'm not a fantasy girly, and I was very hesitant going into it because I have a hard time getting into fantasy worlds and like understanding it. But luckily with Fourth Wing in this world, it really is easy to digest, easy to, you know, like follow the story, follow the rules, follow the politics, follow the world building. It's very easy to do that. So I'm glad that Rebecca Yarros has made a series that is easy to follow and fall into. And this is so good, and I absolutely loved it. I do have Iron Flame. I cannot wait to read it. Let me know in the comments down below if you guys have gotten Fourth Wing, what you have thought, if you guys got the special edition or not, or just like the regular print. And I'm just curious what you guys are thinking. I've heard that the second book doesn't hold up as much, but I would love to know. Number 8 gave me my favorite book boyfriend of this year, and that is going to be IceBreaker by Hannah Grace. I loved this book. This again was a book that I read really early on last year in January, and I loved every minute of this book. This book is long, okay? This book is over 400 pages, but I read this so fast. I loved everything about it. I loved the mental health representation. I loved the golden retriever part of Nate Hawkins. I loved just like how it was kind of a reverse Grumpy Sunshine, where, you know, our girl Stas was our Grumpy, and she just had so much stuff going on for her, and all the things that she was trying to achieve and everything that was getting in her way, and just everything about this book I absolutely loved. No, I have not yet read Wildfire. I own it. I haven't been able to pick it up yet. But right now, I'm still living in this world, and I cannot wait to read more by Hannah Grace and more in this series. I just absolutely love it. And if you have not read IceBreaker yet because you've been hesitant, I highly recommend. This is very, very good. Number 7 is whimsical. It is lovely. It is warm. It is like a warm hug, and it's a little bit of fantasy, and it is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. Oh my goodness, I think she's coming out with another book this year, so I'm so excited about it. And this book just gave me so much warmth and coziness. This is a cozy fantasy. This is like the true epitome of like drinking like warm tea or a warm beverage, laying under the covers and just feeling like the sun like coming through the window. Like if I could describe it any better than that, like I absolutely loved this story. The story follows our girl Mika, who is a witch, and she's teaching 3 little young witches how to control their powers, and it is just the cutest book ever. So highly recommend, and this one was like absolutely one of my favorites this year. So number 6 is from another independent author, and I loved this book, and this book is called French Holiday by Sarah Reddy. Now, I came across this book because I read it, I believe, on NetGalley, and oh my gosh, did I devour this book. This love story is beautiful, and it takes place on the French countryside, so you know it's good, and it's so beautiful. So this story follows our girl Mary, and she starts out where she's, you know, going to her sister's wedding, and her sister is marrying Mary's best friend, who she's been pining after, and it just kills her seeing, you know, this love between her brother, or her sister and her best friend, and she is just heartbroken, and she just needs space. So she decides to take up her, I think it's her godmother or like a family relative's opportunity to stay in this house on the French countryside and try to figure herself out. And along the way, she deals with love, she deals with, you know, family, she deals with learning about herself, feeling open to, you know, explore different avenues in her life. And I loved this book and the imagery and where it takes place and everything about it. But this is one of my absolute favorite books of the year. I love the cover. I can't wait to read more from Sarah Reddy. I'm obsessed with the writing in this book, and this is my 6 out of 23. Yep, this is in my top 6. This is my number 6 out of 23 for the year, and I highly recommend. So we are getting into our top 5, and we are rounding out our top 5 with the Thursday Murder Club, which I'm so excited about. I loved this book. This book is beautiful and cozy and mysterious and thrilling and funny and everything. This book is a cozy, warm hug. This is a mystery, murder mystery, and there's a, you know, you're following these individuals who are living in a retirement home who don't have a lot of things going on in their lives, so they're trying to solve some murders, and they're doing a great job at it, and they are so funny. And I loved the humor in this book. I loved the characters. I loved the developments that you learn about each individual character. Everything about this book was absolutely incredible. So I do understand why this series is so popular, and this was definitely one of my favorite reads of this year. So this is top 5, and this is the Thursday Murder Club. Number 4, you guys have heard me say it, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This book is so good. Pip, I wish I was Pip. Like, I want to be Pip when I grow up. Like, she's so good. I love this story. I love the mixed media. I know I'm kind of like talking a lot about this series, but this was my favorite series of the year. This was the book that I absolutely loved, the characters that I fell in love with, the storyline that I fell in love with, and I just cannot get enough of this. So good. Just please just read it. I know if you think you're too old for it, you're not. Like, it is just so worth your time, and I could not be more happy that I have this, and I have read it, and I'm obsessed. So, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. You do yourself a favor and read this. Number 3 this year made me fall in love with a new author, and wow, am I obsessed with this author and everything she does and everything that I could possibly dream of in a beautiful, romantic, and yet thrilling and suspenseful and kind of dark romance, I guess you could say, and that is The Kingmaker by Kennedy Ryan. Wow, this story literally leaves you on a cliffhanger. It is so good. The book is just, has so much depth, so much culture, so much romance, so much love. Everything in this book is just incredible, and the way that the story is told, it just, like, your heart just fills with so much emotion, and it is so good. And I am obsessed with Kennedy Ryan now, and I cannot wait to read every book that she's ever written, because she is an author that you need to read. Even if you don't like romance, like, the depth in her stories that she goes into, the research that you can tell that she's done for these characters is just on a whole nother level. So highly recommend. This is my number 3 book of the year. My last physical book I have with me is my number 2 book, and I've already talked about this author once, and it is Mia Sheridan. Stinger. Loved this book. This book, Mia Sheridan and Kennedy Ryan, like, the way that they compose a beautiful novel is very similar. Like, the way that these characters that they've developed make you feel, the way that you feel like you're really in that story, the way that you feel connected to every moment, every breath, every statement that is said, every element that is thrown in there, like the way that you react to what is going on. I'm telling you, they know what they're doing. It's an older novel, but it was republished this year, I should say. But wow, just, this was written in 2013, you guys, and this still feels so true to life now. Like, it just, so good. If you have not read this, please pick it up. It is so incredible, worth your time. Oh, this book made me love reading this year. This is one of those books that, like, made me feel so much. So unfortunately today I don't have my number 1 book, but that is okay, because I'm letting my best friend enjoy it, and that is Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. Wow, did this book, this book. So this is a cozy murder mystery, and not a lot of people talked about it this year, but it has everything you could ever want. It has found family, it has a beautiful cast of characters, multiple POCs, true like depth in each character while still being humorous and being, you know, a murder mystery. But wow, like I could not fall in love with more of a character than Vera. I wish Vera was my mother, my grandmother. Everything about her was perfect. I loved how she handled every situation, how she took everything into her own hands and made an amazing, amazing story with, you know, such amazing characters, and just like the murder aspect of this book was just, yeah. But I loved this book. This year was my #1 book. This is a book that I still think about all of the time, and I know it's kind of weird that a cozy murder mystery is my #1, but it has that found family, and that gets me. That really gets me. So yeah, this is my #1 book of the year. Absolutely loved it, and highly recommend if you haven't read it already. I really think it's like a book that everybody should have on their radar. Okay, so those are my 23 books, top 23 books of 2023. I am going to be doing a video that's telling you the books that I'm looking forward to reading next year, but these are my finals. These are my tried and true of this year. These are the ones that really got me into my reading spirit this year. I read almost 100 books when my goal was only 52 books, like a book a week. These books really took me everywhere this year and made me feel so many emotions and storylines that I just fell in love with, characters I fell in love with, and authors that I discovered, and it was just an amazing reading year because of these books right here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know, what were your top 5 books this year? That's what I want to know. I want to know who's reading what this year. I want to know what I should be reading next year, what things should be on my radar. What books did you also enjoy that maybe were in my top 23? I would love to hear from you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in our next video, and Merry Christmas, guys. I'm not going to see you until after Christmas, so have an amazing holiday season, and I can't wait to see you next year.